Hey y'all, this is Moni.
And this is Kat.
Hey Kat.
And
this is the Fake Ass Book Club. Wait, can we both say it or no? Hey guys.
Ooh.
Nice to see you guys. It is, well, we don't see you, but you know what I mean. Welcome back to another
feel
episode.
you.
This is your girl, Moni.
Hey, Moni. This is Kat.
Hey Kat.
Welcome back. You were right to return. Your instincts were correct. They did not fail you. You should be here right now.
I mean, we're awesome. So, of course, they're back. Hello. Okay, guys. So, today, oh my gosh. So, we have a really interesting book today, guys. The title of this book is Sex with Kings by Elanor Herman. And you don't want to miss this episode because this book covers about 500 years of adultery, power, this one's always hard. Rivalry. It's the R and the V. I don't know. It's different.
Rivalry.
And revenge. So you guys
In Europe,
you know, royals and, you know, nasty.
those royals.
Those royals. So this is going to be a fun episode, you guys. Before we get into it, though, we are going to dedicate this episode, as always. We like to start it out by dedicating each and every episode to all 7 of our dedicated listeners. Thank you. Here's looking at you, kid.
Yeah.
Okay. But also, I'd like to dedicate this episode to women's autonomy, and also to men secure enough to love autonomous women and who support and enjoy free-spirited women in all of their splendor. So shout out to you guys. You guys are the real ones. Kat, anything you'd like to add to that?
I'm woefully unprepared for this part, even though I knew it was coming.
I know, right?
This dedication, but I really wholeheartedly support your dedication and yes, anding that, especially for the men who aren't afraid to call themselves feminist.
Okay. Let's go. Let's go to the
You
male
guys are,
feminist.
for everyone who's willing to be an ally.
Oh, yeah, I like that. So here's to allyship.
Imperfect allyship.
Perfect allyship, and cheers to us all.
Cheers to us all. Thank
right.
you. I need it.
I like it. So should we just get right into it?
Let's just dig into it.
Okay.
I feel bad a little bit.
Why?
Because I feel like you didn't enjoy the book. We lightweight talked about it before. It's just, I'm sorry, listeners. We've been cheating on you. And sometimes we talk about the book a little bit before we come on the podcast.
It's true. Well, let's start here.
Okay.
So again, let's revisit. So this book is Sex with Kings. It's by Elanor Herman. And I'll have like a little blurb about her I found online. So she's a New York Times bestselling author of Sex with Kings, which we are reviewing. But she's also written Sex with a Queen and several other works of popular history. She has hosted Lost Worlds of History on the History Channel and, The Madness of Henry VIII for the National Geographic Channel and 2 seasons of America. Fact. I didn't put the T on there. I didn't put the consonant at the end of that.
The wrong
fact
emphasis.
versus fiction. For the American Heroes channel, which I've never heard of.
I haven't either.
And I had a little blurb about her writing in her office, blah, 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 whatever. So, but yeah, I've never heard of this woman before this, and seems like she has a fascination with just history, and I do like her slant on the particular, the information she's covering in history, because typically history is
A little dry.
a little dry.
You know what I enjoyed about Elanor? Okay. So you can see in her About the Author photo, she cosplayed as she looks like a French courtesan.
It looks like...
Or courtier.
It reminds me of the Madrigal dinner that we did in our Catholic school.
Yes, except hers is better.
Yeah.
You remember that song? Hit it.
Leaves so green.
Here we go, a wandering so fair to be seen. Love and joy come to you, and to you good tidings too.
That's enough. Nobody wants to see that. And then you're happy.
Yeah. So this is that period though, and so I like the fact that she's a little silly. Okay. Like there's a certain silliness.
There's some whimsy in there.
There is, in the frivolity of what should actually be very important history that just came down to fuck shit.
Okay. Yeah. You know what? I don't disagree with that. So like Kat said, I did not read the actual book. I already let y'all know how fake this book club is, right? Like, it's not a thing. So I try.
Sometimes you can't. It's not that you don't. It's just sometimes you can't. It's like I can be a responsible parent and adult,
or I can just sit in my room and close the door and just read. I would love to sometimes, but it just doesn't happen. But when I Googled like how many pages, it said 304. Is that correct?
Let me see here. Let me see. Because there's an interesting poet, because she has an index too in bibliography.
It's much needed.
So for the actual book, I feel like you get the story at 255 pages, and then after that, the notes start, because she does cite. I mean, it's historical, so you have to have a lot of citations.
Yeah, because she's putting people shit on blast out here, B. And but though for the audiobook, I want to say, damn, smokers cough. The fuck.
I mean,
okay, we'll move on.
I'm vaccinated.
That's okay. So, but it was like a little over 10 hours of an audiobook, and I still have like 6 hours to go. Let's talk about So I got to like chapter 4 in this
I didn't know that.
Yeah, man. I just didn't get very far. And let me just say this before we even really start talking about the book is that friend Kat said that she didn't think I liked the book. What I didn't like was the narrator. I don't know that I didn't like the content per se. It was more like, it was so fucking hard to listen to, y'all. I was dying. So I can't even recommend you listen to this one. I think that this book is one you need to go ahead and get that hard copy. And I mean, if you're like me and you don't have the time, then just listen to this episode. I mean, Kat has read it. She's about to tell y'all the shit I didn't get. You know what I mean? And we're going to chop it up. But, yeah.
And for me to even get it, I kind of had to make notes.
Okay. See, notes. It was a lot of information. So.
It was a little...
Well, let's talk about the style.
Okay.
Like the style of writing.
Yes.
It's
non-linear, which I always struggle with, because... storytelling is a lot of times just a reproduction of how we're experiencing our lives, and we experience our lives in a linear ABC fashion. So because each chapter has a different theme, a lot of times she will revisit certain, I'm calling them characters, but they were real historical figures from other chapters. And I'll be like, wait, didn't we already talk about them? And isn't this like before this certain thing happened? So a lot of times I had to make notes just to keep everything straight.
Wow. That's a very responsible student of you. I didn't do none of that. So I'm counting.
It gives it context, though, because a lot of times if you're just experiencing one story in a vacuum, it doesn't give you everything. Can I say one thing? This whole book reminded me of a VH1 reality show. VH1,
we're showing our age with that one.
Yes.
Does VH1 still exist?
Yes.
Oh, it does?
That's where you get Love and Hip Hop. Yes, that's where it lives. You can stream it, though, because that's what most of the children do. Okay. But, yes, it reminded me, in a lot of these things, I could kind of see a lot of the characters in a confessional talking about, especially the Versailles stuff. Versailles was definitely a reality show. Oh, I actually started watching the Netflix series Versailles after reading this. Okay. Because I wanted to kind of see some of these characters. Louis the 14th comes up a lot in the book.
Napoleon.
No, Napoleon not as much. But he does come up.
Naming a person that came up.
But it's also, but the reason I had to keep it straight because it was Napoleon and Napoleon III come up a lot in the book. Yeah, that's why it gets confusing because a lot of monarchs take the name of other monarchs. So one of the main monarchs though was Louis the 14th, who was the sort of mastermind behind Versailles. Okay. Which became this super, because as human beings, we're social climbing primates. Like, I don't know if you ever watch any of, like, the Nature Channel things about, like, monkeys and primates and, like, how they interact. They are very social. They have a social strata. Yes. And so as human beings, we still emulate that a little bit. So in the idea of, like, monarchs being above us, which I personally reject because I'm an American, but back in these days, there was this idea that of the divine right of kings, which is the idea that God has given these monarchs the right to rule over everybody. Boo. Boo. Yeah, bullshit, I don't really accept that, but, you know.
That was the thing.
This was what was ruling these societies for centuries.
Yeah, man, because the setting was like, was it like 16 to 1700s probably?
Even before that, some of the stories she covered were like maybe even the 12th century.
Wow, okay, yeah. So
but those weren't, but I feel like the large through line was from, let's say,
it
Louis the 14th and Charles II, because they were cousins, but Charles II was the monarch in England, and Louis the 14th was the monarch in France, and their mistresses and their children had a lot to do with how we basically got to World War I.
Wow. That's really fucked up.
Yeah.
That's really fucked up.
And who they had sex with influenced that a lot.
Yeah. So that was the interesting point to me. So, like, if we're talking relevant themes in this book, to me, I'm thinking, like, definitely sex and politics, sex, power, and politics, and how that plays a part, like what you're saying, as far as even just launching situations into wars and actual economies being affected, all of that kind of stuff. To me, what resonated when we're talking about that is more just the idea of, what a powerful man is,
Or woman.
Or woman. And how that's framed in history. And so I think this is a really interesting vantage point, because she's not taking it from the man's perspective. She's taking it from the women's perspective. And during this time, obviously there wasn't social media, there wasn't internet, there wasn't even pictures probably. There was paintings and shit
pamphlets.
At first. Right. And so
for those who could read, and like you said, in paintings for everyone else.
Exactly.
Which is most of the people. Universal literacy is a really new concept.
100%. And it was by design as far as I'm concerned, because it allowed, again, when you can pull your resources and pull your knowledge, you can kind of puppet master the rest of society when you control it. And that's still a thing now. We won't go there.
Yeah.
Exactly. But you do have this, it's easy to kind of like, okay, have control over how things are set up. So you have these powerful men and they're able to sort of, you make the rules as you go. It's funny how, like, you start off, so, like, I was noticing, okay, in some of these stories you have societies that it's like, okay, they're ultra religious, but at the same time, they're still legitimizing, like, mistresses and stuff like that. And I think the way that they were able to do that was like, well, if the woman agrees, like, if the queen knows that this is a thing, it's like giving her consent in a way. So then now it's like, oh, okay, this is valid, and it's sort of expected. Like, it was almost expected for you to be.
It was more than expected. There was a official position.
Yes.
And a pension. Like, you got paid from the royal treasury. The French word was the maîtresse en théâtre. I'm sorry if I'm pronouncing. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that correctly. The word looks like mattress, because I was thinking maybe the original etymology of the English word for mattress may have been taken from the French word for maîtresse.
Because y'all laying down.
Because you're getting laid.
You're getting laid.
Yeah,
it's happening. To me, it just that's crazy. Like, there was an actual political position.
Because that's status. Position. Like, I have enough largesse. Like, because I think there was a quote from Benjamin Franklin that says, when marriage is arranged, love is. Oh, crap. I gotta find it. Whoa. Oh, wait, here it is, right here.
Oh, wow, that's fast.
Oh, no, this is a different one. There's just a lot of Ben Franklin had quotes. But it's just the idea of, like, if your marriage is arranged, you're gonna seek love no matter what. Like, people, it's a need.
What's weird is that that's the idea. Like, you think that's what you want to find, but socially, that's not what the fuck it is. So
I found it.
Here's the quote. Go.
When there's marriage without love, there will be love without marriage.
Amen.
So
let the church say.
Amen.
Amen.
So a lot of times when it comes to arranging the marriage of a king, and in societies that have arranged marriages, they are very not concerned about how much you love this person. Like, a lot of times you will not have even met this person. One of the first things in the book is, well, I think a lot of when you played a clip of the book for me yesterday, for one, it's being narrated by a man, even though this book was written by a woman. So that's very odd, because like you said, this is kind of from a female perspective of a very patriarchal society. So to have it read by a man, it's weird.
It was, and then, like, he would do voices for the women. It was like, and
just like when we do the guy voice, that's not respectful.
Like he tried, not to shit on the gentleman who did that. He tried his best, but I just felt like they could have casted a better narrator for this particular story, because
I wonder if it was just a bunch of men who were in charge of making the decision of who.
Get in there, Charles, you can do it, it'll be fine, they'll enjoy it. It's like, nah, it was like, it ruined the book for me, honestly, because
it makes a case for diversity, like, not just Yeah.
Diversity is not always just black and white.
It's not.
Penises and vaginas.
It is a lot of times that.
There's that. But yeah, so...
Oh, wait, did we do dedication?
Yes, we did.
Oh, I forgot already because I didn't have one because I just agree with yours. I'm there now. I'm back.
Is there something else you like to
I'm back. No, not at all.
No.
I'll probably think of some later.
Okay. But yeah, so no, we were talking about sex, politics, power, that kind of thing, that whole dynamic. And just how, like, now you're creating these positions for these women to be mistresses. But then the other thing I was thinking about in relation to this was, like, would it be better to be a queen or a mistress?
I would rather be a mistress.
Really?
Because you don't have to stay a mistress. Usually it's a very short-term position.
Whereas lasted a long time, it seemed like.
The ones that they talked about, the ones that got sort of a starring role in this book were talked about a lot over and over again. But for the most part, it's a little flash in the pan. Just because...
Pros and cons. Let's make a list. Okay. So what would you say would be a pro of being a mistress? Let's talk.
You're not targeted as much as the queen is.
Okay.
Because your position is more disposable. It's much harder to get rid of a queen than it is a mistress.
Right. So couldn't that be a con too, though?
Well, it depends on what your motivations are. If you're truly in love with the king, then that would be a disadvantage. But if you're...
How many times do you think these mistresses were truly in love with these
I think it did happen a couple of times. Like, we do know, like, sex does create emotion sometimes. So sometimes they really would fall in love. If your goal was to get the bag, then that is definitely the route. Like the Madame de Pompadours, the Barbara of Castlemaine, like they secured the bag.
Yeah, and they were mistresses long term. Like
yes, over a decade.
Yeah.
So they were in it to win it. And also, well, not Madame de Pompadour, but Barbara of Castlemaine, she did have a lot of kids by I think it was Charles II.
Don't get me lying. I don't remember these people now.
But Charles II had a lot of mistresses.
Yeah.
Like, they made this joke about how a king is supposed to be the father to his nation, and he was, in fact, a father to a good many of them.
Wow, I bet. Because it was just like, y'all are here sliding on all these hoes. But so being a mistress, too, I guess a pro would be like... You're not, like, you can get that position without necessarily having to be, like, so when you're the queen, you have to be this, like, you're a non-entity. Like, you're a uterus. And then when you're not
allowed to say no.
Right, like, but.
Like, one of the kings, I don't remember which one, he actually made his queen go comfort his mistress when she had a miscarriage.
I remember that. I listened to that yesterday.
Yeah.
I was like, really?
And she already felt away because no woman is ever ecstatic about their husband sleeping with someone else, let alone having to go to someone who's supposed to work for you. This is one of her ladies in waiting.
Right. He insisted on her having this position, too.
Right. She didn't even want her having the job because a lot of times the queen would come into a situation where the king was already having a full-blown sexual relationship with somebody else.
Right.
And everybody knows. Mm-hmm. And they're all looking at you like, oh, she's not even cute. And you don't even speak the language, especially coming into, like, Versailles, which is this is why it's okay. So for me, the reason I love this is because I'm obsessed with Versailles.
Yeah, I don't know nothing about it.
Okay.
I don't know nothing.
To me, it was sort of the height of celebrity.
Okay.
Like, if celebrity were an Olympics, it would be Versailles.
So it would be like compared to something now.
It's incomparable.
Is it? Okay.
It's Versailles it's untouchable. It might as well, I would have compared it to the
like
Forbidden Palace in Imperial China.
Okay. Wait, that almost made me choke. I'm thinking, okay, I don't know that people have a lot of reference for that. Okay. So that's why I was trying to think of something now. But, I mean, maybe even just like...
Well, it's because we don't worship our leaders as gods anymore. Versailles only works if you see your monarch as a reflection of the divine.
Right. So maybe not to that extent, but I do think people do that to celebrities just in general. So that same kind of idea, but just amplified by like a million.
Like I said, the parallel is Love and Hip Hop.
Oh, goddamn.
Because it's so shallow, but it's the depth of shallowness.
It was crazy. So, like, when I'm thinking about if in my mind, if they had a narrator, it needed to be the lady from Shonda Rhimes' The Bridgertons.
My name
Yes.
is Lady Whistledown.
Like it gives me Lady Whistledown vibes.
Yes.
Like it seems like there's this person like kind of giving you the tea about all of the salacious shit that's happening within this society that's supposed to be ultra like put together and very like, you know, I don't know, posh.
It's performative wealth.
It's so performative, but it's so fucking petty. And all of it's like to get position and to be noticed and to, you know.
To come up.
Yeah, it's a come up. And I think that, you know, that does translate into today's stuff. And I guess in that respect, it is probably very love and hip hop and any other reality
Because they set the trends.
You know what I mean? Yeah.
They're like, everyone's trying to get like
Keep up
this.
with the Kardashians type shit. You know what I mean? Like.
And what was interesting to me is like when you make it to the top, it's not like you get to enjoy yourself.
No, it's the worst.
I think there was a chapter called The Price of Success is Eternal Vigilance. Like you never get a day off. Like Madame de Pompadour, who was the mistress for, I want to say like almost 2 decades to Louis XIV.
It was a long ass time.
Was it Louis XIV or Louis V?
Like the 4th chapter. I don't know. Don't matter. They're not gonna Google it
Anyway.
They're going to
The French king. Because she... And what was interesting is eventually they didn't even have a sexual relationship. He just relied on her emotionally and for political advice. She actually ran the 7 Years' War. She ran it into the ground.
Crazy.
But I was talking to this about my cousin, and she was like, oh yeah, I know her from Doctor Who. Because she's a much bigger deal in Europe. Like right now, the minister of France lives in her whole old house.
Oh, really?
Yes, she was a big fucking deal. She was pretty much running France because the king didn't want to. So everybody knew.
crazy.
And what's interesting, this is why this book fascinated me, because I saw so many parallels when it came to other royal sort of ecosystems. So let's just say the Chinese imperial dynasty where as when it came to the Emperor of China, they full out expected him to have at least 2 wives and a lot of courtesans.
If you don't,
yeah, like we can't even get you married to the first one until we find you a second one because we have to have backups. But of course, the first one has the most status.
of course,
Because everything comes down to status. And that was what was interesting to me when the king would have a mistress who was a commoner. Like, he basically just didn't have to give her or her kids as much because...
I really hated hearing how like a king can walk up in this bitch and basically have his pick of whatever woman. It doesn't matter your social standing or anything.
Yeah, she could be married to somebody else.
Married to somebody else. And let's get back to that point. Don't forget that point because that shit took me out too. But then it's like, you know that a woman's reputation is everything in these kind of societies. You know, like the way this virginal like idea of your
Like in Bridgerton.
Like in Bridgerton. So like
oh,
if
she was
you,
caught alone in the garden
Oh my goodness, I'm
with the count.
Yeah, and so like you can come in here and want to have sex with me and make me do it even if I don't want to and fuck up my whole life basically because who wants to marry me? But a lot of the time these kings, they would you know, say she's married or not. If she wasn't married, so they're having this affair or whatever, and they would try to find them a husband. So you're basically looking for like the reverse mustache situation for
a beard, if
a beard.
you will.
Oh wait, I said a mustache.
It's facial hair.
It's been it was facial hair, and this
was
is a
facial
margarita.
hair.
This
You
is
were
my
right
second
there.
one. I see.
You're
I got
doing
very
great.
close. Thank you, friends. I appreciate you.
You're doing great.
But basically, like you find these men who are willing to like pimp their wives out, or be be a beard. So because the king is coming to slide on your wife.
Right. So your options are he fucks you up or you are compliant and let him
And get
fuck
the bag,
your wife.
and you're getting the bag. So now it's
there was
reversed.
one guy, he's like, I'm the perfect husband. I see nothing and I say nothing.
100%. I think that's kind of close to where I left off when they were doing the husband thing, where it was like, and I think it was the story where, I don't know which Napoleon, but there was this guy who had a wife who he knew was beautiful. Because at this time, this is what fucking blew me away too. These motherfuckers were terrible looking. I mean, by the description, like what made you cute in this time was like having just skin that didn't have smallpox scars.
Shout out to vaccines.
Not smelling like a bag of ass sandwiches. And
they didn't bathe. Bathing was not seen as like bathing was seen as actually being bad for your health, which it may have been because of the water quality. Like if you weren't boiling the water before you took a bath, there is a good chance you could get
Boil the water.
waterborne pathogen. Europe was disgusting.
There was nasty, man.
Listen, we are so reliant on indoor plumbing. We don't even know.
And then there was whole civilizations that had that going before Europe. But I digress. I'm not even
Europe
getting into that.
gross.
They were fucking nasty, y'all. And then them
flea bitten. Yeah, they had head scratchers for their flea bitten scalps from the wigs and stuff.
It was so nasty.
Yeah, it was gross.
The beauty standard was just like, your teeth are white. Your skin isn't all scarred. You don't have a terrible and a lot of the women who I felt like did really well were the ones who bathed and the ones who actually took some kind of
bathing. That was the bar.
That was a big thing.
Yeah, taking the time to bathe every morning.
Oh my God! Can you imagine being stuck? Can you imagine being a 15-year-old?
Can you imagine that ball dust?
Ball dust. Ew. Oh my God. Moment of silence.
Pause for that. No, I couldn't.
I need everybody to think about what that
Could you
might
imagine having to perform oral sex on somebody's flea-infested pubic hair?
First of all, and then too, if that's what's happening, then it's you have. Now, were they being circumcised at this time?
No, that's too Jewy.
So now you have this, oh my God, you've got a yeast infection of just smegma buildup. So now you smell a whole ass rancid yogurt in your crotch.
And he probably hasn't washed since he fucked the last bitch.
Dude, oh my God. I cannot. It was so nasty.
But there's cologne though.
And so what I was struck by, too, was just the detail. Because, these people had nothing other than their imagination. So you would people have these extensive memoirs where they're going in detail about the color of your eyes, your hair, the dress you were wearing, down to the stench. They were telling this story about one of the princesses. No, they were talking about some big titty mistress. I don't know if she was a mistress or a wife. I don't know. But she had big breasts, and that was the reason why this king always wanted to have sex with her. But the thing was, she had these fucked up teeth, and that her breath smelled so bad that when she came into the room, you can smell it across the room.
Damn.
I wanted to fight somebody when they said that. I'm like, so
because toothbrushes haven't been invented yet.
I don't give a fuck. There's some something
bark,
you can
tree
chew
bark.
on. There's something that you can do to help.
That is how a lot of people died. Toothaches could kill you back then.
Absolutely. Your teeth can go, you can go septic. If you have an abscessed tooth, if you're not brushing your teeth, that bacteria in your, don't get me started. I couldn't have lived.
And there's no clean water. Yeah, I can't imagine it. It was already.
I hated it.
Yeah, so it didn't take much to run game on a king. You just had to wash yourself.
Oh my gosh. Right. And then it was
have some conversation.
Right, but then it was oh, she had beautiful blonde hair.
It's she hung her bloomers out and we could see her undergarments.
Her lace petticoats had me feeling a little faint in the head.
Yeah, there was no.
God damn, there was no porn back then.
There wasn't. There was.
Peepholes in the wall, bitch.
Well, no. There's always been porn. You can draw porn.
Okay,
there's always been porn.
But
and romance novels, there were body novels and stuff like that. There were things, but it's not now where you could just the algorithm knows your preferences, and as soon as you pull up whatever, it's
gang
it's is this oh, you want to see some toes? Here's some toes.
Right, we got
it's
you.
Okay, we got you.
Oh my gosh, yeah. So
no judgment.
But then they did have where sometimes the mistresses or the queens would spy on.
Yes, they drew holes in the floor so they could see what was going on.
So you and your ladies in waiting could watch.
Because
wow.
Because I'm obsessed with the idea of monarchy and these sort of kingdoms. Because we'll get there, but I'm super obsessed with the Chinese imperial court. That was something that would happen a lot. You're in such sexual competition with basically every female in the kingdom because the king has the right to everyone in the kingdom. So, or in the case of the Chinese emperor, everyone in the empire. So, you have to have the best sexual game if he's going to come to you because he can go to anybody. True. So, a lot of the empresses who were successful went to brothels to learn what they were doing to keep their clientele, and you would have to bribe the eunuchs who made the copulation schedule. So, because they would use the astrological charts to be well, this is your ideal time to make a prince with
to be hunching. So now you have to.
Yes. So they have to make all these things. So they would, break off the eunuchs and they'd be hey, make sure I get on the king's schedule,
right?
So that I can turn him out.
Right. I need to
and there was
air.
Empress Orchid, like, that's not what we're talking about, but, like, yeah, she was able to get us, because, and the thing is, too, you can't just, this was so funny to me, because in both the English, French, Spanish, Chinese courts, you only got clout if you had a boy.
100%.
Like, these girls were
Yeah.
useless. I mean, they were good for marrying off, and you could maybe get a price for her or something like that. But you only secured your place if you made a male heir, because then if the king dies, you can rule in his name.
Wowzers.
And that happened a lot, too, over
So you
the
had
years.
to have a dick and balls combo to be important. Your son had to be
And
born with
survive
that.
past infancy, which was difficult.
Yeah. Because they
And
were disgusting.
I don't know if you got to it, too, because they would run that game. And once again, this was something I remember reading about in the Mongol Empire. They did this, too, where there would be a prince who was basically like the princess, or the queen dowager figured out that her son was basically sterile. Like, 'cause he has all these wives and never having any kids. So the queen dowager is like, okay, you know what? We're going to bring in some other kid and pretend it's yours.
Oh, wow.
And
right,
so,
to keep your status, though. I mean, you don't want to give that up.
So they would pretend to be pregnant and then have, like, a low-born woman come in. Like, or they'd find a bunch of low-born women who were pregnant, feed them, and then whichever one of them had a boy, take that boy. A lot of times kill the mom so that the story, that you can't get it out.
Wait. This was in the book?
Yeah.
Okay.
They didn't kill the mom, though. This was actually...
I missed that, y'all.
Yeah, this was later on in the book. She was. They ended up uncovering it, but she lived her whole life like looking over her back, that afraid that the Medicis were going to come for her, because. Imagine your miserable peasant-ass life. All of a sudden, it's like, hey, girl, you pregnant? We got some chicken. It's like, yeah, chicken? It's like, yeah, bitch, I've been eating rotten potatoes. I would love some chicken. So, like, they feed her so that she'll have a healthy baby. She gives birth, and we talked about this before. When you're giving birth, you're very vulnerable. Like, you can't fight nobody if they take your kid. You're just stuck there bleeding. Wow. So...
No. That's damn. I mean, facts.
So that was what was interesting to me, is that these power grabs had so much to do with reproducing an heir and a spare.
Oh my God, I hated it. So, well, not hate the book, but I hate all of what you just said. I was terrible. But yeah, I mean, so when I'm thinking back on the parts that I did like was. I do think that it's cool to get that insight because, like you said, I mean, in France, you know, Lady, what's her name?
Which one? Pompadour?
Her. No.
Madame Pompadour? She's the one who, like, ruled France.
That one, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And how people there know about her. Like, you just don't, I mean, you tend to hear about the kings. You don't hear about these women that are instrumental in their lives and how they affected the actual politics of how the country ran even at that time, and just the social climate and how.
Actually, I think she was the mistress to Henry V. Now that I think about it,
that's fine.
Okay,
it doesn't matter. You know, to me, I don't care about that. I mean, okay.
Or not Henry. I'm sorry, Louis V.
See, there's too many names, y'all. What I needed was a flow chart. Like, I needed her to, like, put one of those nice little. It looks like the NCAA playoff brackets. Like, that's what I needed. I needed to see, like, what hoes was on nobody. Which side, which one were the
Madame
monarchs.
Pompadour? She only left on a stretcher. That bitch died. That's how she beat.
Like,
that's how they removed her Mistress on Tetra status.
Oh man!
At one point, she was managing what in today's money would have been about $300 million a year.
That's fucking crazy, man.
And they said, though, when she died, she only had a couple gold coins, though.
But that's, again, you know, like, I feel like the theme that keeps coming up, too, is just, like, the ability to curate a life for yourself when you're a woman outside of a man's power or jurisdiction. And how, I don't know, like, just how powerless you must feel, like, when your daughter, so say you're 15 and it's like, well, you decent, like, you don't got smallpox and shit, scars, and I mean, we got to try to find a husband for you because otherwise we could die, like, we're pretty poor. I mean, just the difference between your survival just hinged on
how good your pussy was.
How good, or it didn't even matter. It was almost like if you had, but I hate that you put that on a young person like that. Like, you have to now, it's like, well, I know you don't want to do it, but, like, we'll all starve if you don't.
Well, that was what was interesting with the first Napoleon, and when he got obsessed with Maria, she was a Polish woman.
Yes, that's the one I'm talking. Yes,
okay, he was obsessed with her. And this was what was interesting, too, because these obsessions are so short-lived.
100%. Because it's like, oh, you're different. I haven't seen you before.
It's like, oh, I didn't even know. I was like, oh, they make him like, and like like I said, she had a husband, but Napoleon didn't care. He's like, I have to have
Neither
it.
did the husband. He was the one flaunting her at the court, hoping she got noticed. So there's that. So then you have Pimp Daddy on this side, and you got this dude here. And it's like, so when do we get to...
And there's no reliable birth control. This is a nightmare.
Like, you can
there's no
tampons at any time. It's just, it feels
no indoor
like
plumbing.
Hell.
You just have to, you had to shit in a pot.
And then when they were talking about like these like super fancy gatherings where all the nobles would be, so like at court and stuff like that, it was talking about how the mistress knew that, like, you know, she didn't expect her food to be warm because she knew she had to. So when we're talking about pros and cons, like the cons of being this mistress, though, is that you really have to low-key pretend like you give a fuck. Like, let's say you don't love this man, but you're doing this because it's like survival. Yeah. You know what I mean? So
because everyone's relying on you. You said your family is relying on you.
Bitch, I have pneumonia, and I have to go hunting with your motherfucking ass. In the middle, you know, in cold weather and horseback after I
and
just
the king's
gave
not
birth,
trying to hear, I don't feel good.
I don't feel good. I need you to come from your sick bed.
But he's like, but bitch, you make me feel good. You have to come here now.
Like a real life pacifier. Like, I don't know. Like, I almost rather be the cold bitch that nobody gives a fuck about. Like, let me have one of your little big head ass fucking kids, and I'll stand in here and sew. Like, I'm not trying to pretend like I give a fuck about your life, sir.
So you have more, it's like, give me queen status.
Just give me, kind of. I see the pros and cons on both sides, because sometimes it just depended on the king, really. Because regardless of your position, he could decide whether or not you lived in poor conditions. Because some of these kings love their mistresses so hard that they treated their queens like shit, and vice versa. So it was kind of like, it just depended on who you got. But I just felt like I don't want to be in a position where I have to, it's all pageantry and we all have to pretend, but I couldn't see myself, okay, what would my lord like his linens to be like here? Just so that I don't get dismissed, he might find a younger. Like, you can't dismiss me because, bitch, I have my position. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm already here. So bitches are plotting. But at the same time, it's like, I don't want to pretend like I give a fuck. Like, I just don't, if I don't. You know what I mean? I guess it's different if you actually have feelings for this motherfucker. Then that would be a sweet position
That was what was interesting to me, is that in a lot of these stories, a lot of times it does seem like the wife was very much emotionally hurt by their husband's decision to step out.
Right.
Even though you've been conditioned from birth to be like, listen, your life will be a lot easier if you shut the fuck up and let him fuck who he wants.
Your daddy slides. Your uncle slides. All of your brothers slide, bitch. He's sliding. Like, it's happening.
But it's
right. But when it's you, it's
when
different,
it's me,
right?
it's different.
Again,
it's like, but he loves me. That was what was interesting, was like, a lot of these kings did love their queens. Like, there was this real, some of them did. Like, there was this real desire to protect and love them. But they were like, girl, I'm about to,
but I have to go. I am just,
and be like, hey, I want this lady to be, a part of your entourage. And it's like, I know this is the bitch you're fucking. Like, everybody told me before I even came here, this was your bitch. Right. And you want her to comb my hair?
Right. And keep track of my periods. Help me get dressed. Man, if you don't get her ass out of my face, like...
Ew! But you had to, the women who acquiesced had easier lives.
They did, because their kings treated them better. When you were nice to their hoes, they were nicer to you.
Yeah.
So I just hate all of it.
It was all bad. There was not a good choice. Well, you could also be a nun. You could go to a convent.
I hate that choice.
Yeah.
All of them are bad. There's not a good choice.
I don't know anybody in this book, at least any of the women, that I would want. None of their lives look desirable.
No.
Especially with the amount of privilege I have. What was interesting to me, because I've always been a fan of art history. Okay. And so when you're in school, all you learn is European art history for the most part. Right. Like, that's the only thing that they concentrate on. And when you get into it, if you've ever painted anything, you would know when you paint, if you draw, you have to have a reference. Like, you don't just go from memory. Well, if you do go from memory, it doesn't look good. And so you need something to look at while you're painting. So a lot of times the mistresses would be the models for a lot of these medieval paintings we look at now.
Really?
Yes. Like, there's actually, and see, this is why you needed the picture book. This was Agnès Sorel. She was the mistress. Yeah, her titties out. She was, I forget who she was. We'll look it up later, who she was the mistress to. But she's in this painting, she posed as the Virgin Mary. offering her breast to an uninterested Jesus. And actually, I hate this. Like, I remember like this painting from like art history class, and I hated it because the symmetry of the boobs is off. It's not painted. I mean,
I can't see it from here, but I'll take your word for it.
Yeah, but basically, in a lot of these paintings, like they'll even be. Yeah, that was Gabrielle Strauss. She was a really famous mistress. Like, you get these paintings because the king would want to look at his mistress a lot of times. And it's like the only art game in town was the religious, like the church was the ones who commissioned all this stuff. So there would only be religious imagery, but it would be pictures of basically the king's slam piece.
There's that word again.
Yes. A lot of, and it would, and ironically, she would often, the only popular female character in the Bible, the Virgin Mary, even though the woman who is, posing in repose
was a slam piece.
Getting nailed.
Slam piece Mary.
One of my favorite quotes from it was when one of the kings remarked to his mistress, like, I've spent enough on you to build a battleship. And she replied, you've spent enough on me to float one. Meaning
like he busted so many nuts inside of her.
Yes, you floated on all of that.
Ew.
Yeah. Yeah.
Did they have kids?
I can't remember who said what because there were so many daggone people.
I'd rather, okay.
Yeah, it's super gross. But the history, because of how because most people don't read the Bible, we're mostly experiencing it through pictures and especially during this time period too, when people didn't know how to read. Like even rich people, a lot of rich people didn't know how to read. There's this idea that you're only getting the story through pictures, and the pictures you're getting are just through. That's why even now we visualize the characters from the Bible as being these European characters, even though they would have been very much Middle Eastern African characters.
Right.
It's one of the first instances of appropriation.
But you're going to, when you're telling stories, you always, there's no way to separate yourself, I feel like, from narratives. So when you're telling stories, you're picturing yourself or somebody you know in these stories. So, in that way, I see how that happens. Because when you have these stories, you're like, oh, yeah, I see me. And so if I'm painting it, I'm going to paint myself,
It's just like when you gave me a great book about the face of Jesus.
I did. I thought you'd like that.
I did. Mm-hmm. And just the fact that when we say the word Jesus Christ and the visual, like, I'm learning now, too, there are some certain people who don't pull up visual imagery when they think of something. I do. Really? I'm a very visual person. But yes, there are some people who don't visually visualize information. They don't.
Because I do, I assume everybody does.
Exactly.
See how that goes?
Exactly.
That's not fair.
That's not how everybody is. For a lot of people, it's just 404 image not found. And so they're just seeing the words. But for a lot of people, when they visualize Jesus Christ, it's Cesare Borgia. They don't know that. Right. But that was the model because the Borgias they ran a lot of the Pope Catholic art game.
Yeah, man.
They were in charge of that. And so they were like, yeah, might as well be my son who's standing in as the Son of Man.
Well, and I think that this author has a book, Mistresses of the Vatican. I have you read that one?
I have not. Actually, I am kind of interested in reading her other stuff. Like I said, I just came across this book at the dollar table at Cat Price Books.
Cat Price Books is...
and I was just like, this looks intriguing, and to me it was.
Yeah, she has a bunch of... I think a lot of her, so I'm like pulling up some of the titles of her other books. She's got, let's see, Sex with the Queen. I mentioned that one. The Royal Art of Poison. Woo! That's how you do it, though, I think. I can't overpower you physically. I'm about to give you a cocktail, though, real quick, if I need to. And Voice of Gods, Legacy of Kings, King Peggy. That's different.
Yeah.
Let's see, An American Secretary, Her Royal Destiny, and an inspiring story of how she changed an African village. Wow. Ooh. I think she went on to be
well, you said African. This was what was interesting, too, because in lots of parts of Africa, polygamy is just the standard. Mm-hmm. So when, let's just say, the trade routes between Europe and Africa were opening up, and the French or the European courts were entertaining African kings, they would bring gifts not only for the king and queen, but also for his mistresses, because there would sometimes just be language barriers. For a lot of these African kings, they had multiple wives. So they just saw the mistresses as second and third wives.
Right. It's like,
And so, of course, they're like, well, I don't want to create a faux pas and just bring something for one wife and not bring something for the other wives. That would be rude.
It's true.
And so, yeah, there's this idea of when you go from, and of course, it always makes me think of Star Trek, because whenever you're going... Everything comes back to Star Trek. Because when we're going into different lands and we're learning about different customs, there are different mores, what's acceptable. And for a lot of African societies for millennia, they're like, we wouldn't even, come on. Like he's just going to have, come on. Like, we're not even going to pretend like this isn't what was going, like, this is very still common now. You know, in a lot of places where it's completely expected for a man to have more than one wife. Whereas there was a nice chapter about what happens to mistresses who are unfaithful to the king.
Okay, let's talk about it. The double
Get
standard
into it.
here. It's just, so I'm supposed to be knitting, twiddling my thumbs, waiting for your nasty ass. And let's talk about the description of a lot of these kings.
Oh, there are some great pictures in, well, let me, maybe you'll be able to see it on the iPad.
It was just, to me, it's like, okay, so this guy one of the kings is talking about how ugly his princess is, and he can't believe that he's expected to lay down with her. Meanwhile, you have a 57-inch waist, sir.
That was Henry VIII. And an open
fucking ulcer on your leg that smelled like
and
swag.
A lot of venereal disease. Let's talk about that, because you're fucking everybody. So a lot of times you're passing. That was a lot of
syphilis. Get out my face.
Well, and it made him insane because, like I said, the madness of Henry VIII.
He was crazy, man.
He was out of his mind.
Disgusting. Like, it was so disgusting, y'all. Y'all don't understand.
Okay, well, this isn't Henry VIII. This is Henry IV.
Ew.
You don't want to get on top of that?
I hate him. He's nasty. And then his crotch smells like ass. You haven't.
What about his breath? You don't want his hot breath on your neck?
So that's what I'm saying. So I'm supposed to pretend. I'm supposed to sit here and entertain your motherfucking ass so I can live. I'd rather die. I'd be one. It's like, I'll jump off the ship. And
okay, and this is Louis V. So this was the king to Madame de Pompadour. And he was the one who actually, now, do you remember Madame de Dubarry? Do you remember that name? Okay, so she's the mistress that took over after Madame de Pompadour. She was not interested in politics at all. She's like, I'm a cute bitch and I want to be cute.
I know that's right.
And they actually pulled her from a brothel.
Oh.
And she turned the king out.
Did they marry her to give her a noble status so that it wasn't, so that was interesting how they did that. It's like, well, she can't just be a common hoe. Let's give her a husband.
Yes.
So that, it gives
some lands and titles so that
Mm-hmm.
she's allowed to be in Versailles, because you could not stay in Versailles without a title.
Right, you had to.
So you had to get her married, get her titled, and then the king could start, she could live in apartments that were connected by secret doorway to the king so he could come and go at his leisure. What was interesting, though, was the church did play a role, because when the king was dying, his mistress could not be there. I don't know how many of our listeners are Catholics, but Catholics say that part of the sacraments are last rites. So when you're dying, your last act is supposed to be one of renouncing all your sins and receiving communion or receiving the host. And you can't do that in sin. And a mistress is sin, because you're having an extramarital affair. So you're totally allowed to have one when you're not dying. But once you're dying, you have to renounce it. So Louis V, the legend goes that he was, crying for Madame Dubarry. Yes, when he was dying, like asking for her, even though he sent her away initially, but he was like, please, please. Now, spoilers, this is just history though. Madame Dubarry got her head cut off during the French Revolution. Like, the peasants had enough. They were like, we're tired of you spending all of our work on these hoes.
Damn.
And we're going to show you our displeasure by cutting this bitch's head off.
Well.
And she was so dumb, she didn't see it coming. Madame de Pompadour saw it coming. But she just died before it happened. Yeah. But she was like, this is unsustainable. But she actually did try to do a lot for helping the industry of France. She started a lot of textile factories. Like, she was actually interested in improving the lives of the citizens, because she knew there is no wealth without what people produce.
Right. Even now, though, like, even when I think you hear, people in England or the UK trying to legitimize, there still being this sort of... I know, like, in practice, they're not necessarily ruling out
the
monarchs or whatever, but, they bring tourism in and da-da-da-da. So, like,
and gossip.
And gossip. So, like, there has to be this narrative where the people buy into it, or it just doesn't work.
True.
It doesn't work.
True. Because that's what, if you know about history, that is what brought along the French Revolution. It ties into our own history here in America because the plantation system was built up it was modeled off of the feudal system of Europe. So the only difference was instead of having serfs, you just had black people in America.
Right, exactly.
But in Europe, the serfs were slaves to the land. So the nobles would inherit the property and the people on it.
Right.
You are owned as much as the land is.
Right.
And so to me, that was fascinating to examine those dynamics because it's the same thing here in the United States. It's not covered as much, but there were brothels that were just peopled by slave women. Like, they don't have any other option.
I think a lot of brothels now, today, like when you think about just human trafficking and all that, I mean, like a lot of that just comes from just unwilling participants.
Yes.
Being bodies there, you know what I mean?
Or it might be seen as willing, but because it's a person who can't make that decision really for themselves.
Man, if you get snatched up and taken somewhere.
Well, not even snatched up, just caught up. Because I feel like this counter narrative of like the idea that you're kidnapped and thrown into sex trafficking doesn't really happen. The majority of the time, it is what is seen as a willing participant. It's someone who thinks that they're in a relationship with someone who coerces them into sex work.
Right.
Like, they think this is their boy. Like Miss Pat. She's like, I thought this is my boyfriend.
Yeah,
but it's like a lot of times it's this person who's like, I need you to do this, this, this. And then all of a sudden you're in it and it happens before. Yeah.
Your brain's not even fully developed.
You're not. So it's not this idea of like it's not like Taken. I hate Taken. Because that's not how sex trafficking works. Sex trafficking.
Not that I picture it like that per se, but whatever the avenue is, you know that it's not like I signed up to say, hey, yeah, like that's cool, like I'll be your, you know what I mean?
Yeah, it's not someone who's willingly showing up to be like, I would like to be a sex worker.
Right. Or if they are, it's probably because they realize that's their only path, and it's like, I mean, I don't want to be killed.
Yeah.
And in order to have this protection, like it's the worst. So
it is.
I guess this is a little bit better
than being killed.
Yeah. It's a slower death.
Or hunger.
It's a slower death.
Because that's the other thing, too. I try to remind my kids of that, too. It's like, you've never been hungry a day in your life. Right. Like, as much as you cry starvation in almost every minute of the day, you've never gone a day, like, hungry. There's been food you didn't want to eat, but there's always been food.
Right.
It's a big difference when there's no food.
Oh, my God.
That changes your brain chemistry. I know. I've never felt it. There's always been at least oatmeal.
Or bread.
That's why I said I always know, like, the kids are really hungry when the oatmeal starts getting eaten. Then I'm like, okay, y'all are hungry.
Canned goods.
But it's like, there's so much oatmeal in this cabinet. Y'all ain't hungry.
Definitely not. But yeah, I don't know. For me, this book I think if I would have read it, I would have liked it better. Because then I could have created the picture in my head a little bit more and not had that man's voice. Again, like in my dreams, it would have been narrated by Lady Whistledown in the Bridgerton.
Yes.
And it would have been very like, oh my God, girl, what?
Moni,
what?
I promise while I was reading this on vacation, because I read it on vacation, which also just really sort of hammered my privilege. But I was thinking about how I would love watching a reality show, like a mockumentary style reality show that was Versailles.
Honestly, it would be. And I need them to make them up. Because who was that one poor mistress who the king, like, even though she was like dying and stuff, like required her to be at all this shit, and she was
Madame de Pompadour.
Yeah, like
she was having migraines. And having to wear lead paint makeup and stuff.
Which is also killing you.
Yeah, Madame de Pompadour. That was her.
Oh, my God. And just see her, like...
She had ill health, and he passed her quite a few diseases as well. I mean... which were ravishing her, too.
For real.
Yeah.
Like, I mean... I was outdone. I was just outdone. And then... To me, it seemed like no matter what position you were in, unless you were the king... The shit sucked.
And actually, the shit for kings looked like it sucked too. Like, that's the thing. It's such an unnatural way of living, because I've seen that too with, like, let's say the European kings and even the emperors of China. A lot of times they would just die of sadness.
Oh shit.
Seriously, they're so...
Sorry, that's inappropriate.
No, it's okay. Laugh it up. It's like, oh my God, but they were so disconnected from a natural way of living.
Reality, yeah.
Because there was I actually did pull it up. There was, I can't remember which king it was. I feel like it was one of the Bavarian ones, where his mistress wasn't actually super beautiful or entertaining or anything like that. She just had a very simple home life.
Oh, did he go to live with her?
Like, he would just go and have, he was just perfectly happy just to have croissant and coffee and talking with her in her quiet little cottage. And that's where he felt like happy and safe. Whereas, a lot of the emperors of China, you learn about their lives, and some of them just died because they didn't want to live anymore like that.
It's like
you're basically a hostage. You're isolated because you're expected the forbidden. I'm obsessed with the.
We're gonna have to get one of these in here.
The forbidden.
What's the one that we did? I did read a long time. Was it the Forbidden City?
Yeah. The Forbidden City is fascinating to me because they really did build it to be heaven on earth for the emperor.
Wow.
Because he was the king of heaven. And but you're not allowed to leave. Like, there was a summer palace, but basically you had to either be in the summer palace, which was ravaged and looted by the Europeans, and that's how they got a lot of their art in those.
You know what's weird? They've done that a lot across history, it seems.
I like really do feel a way about the sort of rape of the summer palace in China because I never get to see it. Like, you can still see the Forbidden City, like it's still there. Mm-hmm. They fucked up the summer palace, which was supposed to be this.
They fuck up all the art, though. Like, everything that, you know what I mean? Like, whether it's chiseling noses off of pharaohs or raping, these palaces of their natural resources and throwing them up in their museums. It's like, it's kind of fucked up.
It's upsetting. I don't like it.
To say the least.
But these emperors that were expected to live there and... It was so depressing. A lot of them, you can die from depression.
Listen, but also that goes back to autonomy. Like, this is a theme because at the end of the day, when you start living for social constructs and you start living for society and to uphold status and trying to uphold these impossible and inhumane, like, just rules, it's not fulfilling at all. And I think that there's just there has to be this balance between your own personal happiness and the good of those around you. And so I think that's what we're always trying to find, because when you're living for other people, obviously you don't have happiness. But then when you're ultimately super selfish, then you're not happy either. Or it disrupts the balance. You know what I mean? So I don't know.
What do you do?
But just be better. I mean, there has to be some kind of evolution here.
I would like to say, like, this is sort of a theme of... For a lot of women, this was their only conduit to power. I think this is a good time to take a break.
Yeah, let's take a break, guys. We'll be right back. Okay, bye.
Boom.
So it's almost the end of the show, and what we're going to do now is spin the wheel. So we like to spin the wheel just to kind of pick what we're going to talk about next episode. So let's spin it. It's spinning and spinning and spinning. All right. So it looks like we are going to read a book by Gabrielle Union. We're going to need more wine.
Yay, I love Gabrielle.
She is fantastic.
Especially since the Bring It On days.
And even more now, just with Kavya, like, her face.
She looks exactly the same. It's really really good for her.
You know what? Time has been kind to her, definitely. She's got some good genes.
And yeah, it looks like she's making a lot of good choices.
Yes, and you know what? I've read this book before, and I'll be happy to revisit it, too, because it's been a little time. But I just remember I always liked Gabrielle, from what I could tell. And I liked her so much more after. I think that is one thing about, listening to people's stories and reading about them. It endears you. Like, if they're, it endears you to them. It doesn't make them perfect, because I like that, she talks about that a lot in her book, too, kind of exploring just, like, her journey into becoming herself.
Yeah, she didn't back away from any of like the things that didn't shine a great light on her. Yeah, which is it's very brave.
Listen, that just gave me chills, because I'm like, ooh, I don't know if I would want to do that, but I appreciate when people put themselves out there. But her story was really cool. I really liked, just hearing about her life, and so I'll be excited to revisit her story and share it with you guys. So hopefully you guys come back and join us for that.
Do it.
Yeah. All right. So that's it, guys. And we're back.
Yes.
Man.
So who do you think would enjoy this book?
I think anybody who's interested in, I don't know. I mean, I don't think you necessarily have to like history to think that this is interesting, because it's, like I said, the subject matter itself is interesting because it does touch on a lot of really I mean, even themes that are relevant now. Just as
universal themes.
Yeah, they're universal themes.
Money, power, respect.
Money, power, respect. Oh, what's that song?
Have you leading right?
What's that?
Money, power, respect. Have you living right? Money, power, respect.
And I feel like the beat was off. Y'all know what we're saying.
Yeah, but that's everything. All over the world, money, power, respect.
Money, power, respect. And it just, I mean, I think it was a good story. Just please do me a favor. Don't, and I don't know if there was a different version somewhere else. I did it through Audible. So maybe that tragic man was not speaking on every audio. That was the worst, y'all. Like, I could not even do it.
I was reading it on vacation, and to me, it was the perfect vacation read.
Book. Yeah.
Because you could kind of pick up wherever, because and that was the strength and the weakness of the book, that there wasn't a through line narrative.
Yeah.
There were so many different characters and narratives that if you already have a passing familiarity with the French,
nobody does, Kat.
European, Austro-Hungarian, and Spanish courts. Some people do. I do. I was super into.
Nobody knows but you.
Marie Antoinette.
Okay, Marie Antoinette. Okay.
Because she's in it.
Let them eat cake. I mean, a lot of these,
but that wasn't.
Little.
She never even said that.
Okay, well,
that was from a story about Rousseau, about a princess that got attributed to her, but she actually never said "let them eat cake."
See, that's what I'm not a history buff, but I don't think you have to enjoy this book.
No,
I mean, the stories are salacious. Again, it gives me Shonda Rhimes vibes,
big time.
And I think that had I read it,
Love and Hip Hop,
way more. Yeah, because it's so fucking dumb.
It's like everybody
topical.
Fighting over Stevie J, because a lot of these hoes were fighting over
put me
these
on a song.
It's like, well, he gave me a carriage. It's like, well, he gave me a carriage with 6 horses. Well, I have 8 horses. I have 2
of his babies. Well,
and
me too.
And my son got named a duke, and yours is just a count.
It's real petty. It's real.
It's like all of this power is only maintained with blood.
And penises.
Yeah, which also produces.
Gross.
There's so...
Yuck.
It sounds like a living nightmare.
It really did. I mean, that's what I got from the book. Like, I'm glad I wasn't there.
With cute clothes. I actually, you know what was real fun about watching Versailles yesterday? Because I told you this, I was actually soaking in a tub of rose petals watching Versailles. I thought that would be super decadent.
When I saw your leg yesterday, and I was like, it looks so soft. I mean, this is weird. This might be weird.
Get weird. Get weird on the listeners.
I mean, like, if I ever touched her hand or just anything, like, Kat has, like, the softest skin ever.
I'm mad buttery.
I was like, damn, your leg is like satin.
She
was like, I soaked in a bath of. I'm like, of course
rose petals.
Did. Okay.
Shout out to Miss Franklin.
Of course
because she actually, I got like a little like pampering gift packages from her where I had Franklin. She makes like candles and stuff. Like she's local.
Nice. Okay.
Yes, I'll shout her out. Put her in the description. But like, she put these little. I was actually thinking of I need to get with her to get some gifts I want to give to the facility where my grandmother is right now, because those people work hard. And
hard work, man.
It is. And if anybody deserves a rose petal bath, it's those nurses up there.
And all the ancillary staff, because y'all get forgotten.
Yes.
Y'all be doing a lot too. So
shout out to y'all. But like, it was this little package that came with like bubble bath and rose petals and a little bit of CBD to smoke. Ooh. And just so you can just do a little bit of self-care and take care of all of that. So I had done that and listened to and was watching Versailles while doing that and keeping it.
For you. I like that.
Thank you.
I like that. Good for you.
Yeah, going hard with the self-care.
That's awesome. Yeah. So, I mean, I think, to be fair to this book, if I had to rate it, I have to give it 3.5.
3.5. I feel like that's super fair.
Because, I mean, again, I think some of that is because of the delivery. You know what I mean? And that's not really anybody's. So I'm going to give it 3.5 bars of soap and then like a side dose of fucking antibiotics for all these nasty ass hoes in this book. Because I was disgusted overall. Like, honestly, just how disgusting they all were at the time.
Once again, I don't want to live a life without indoor plumbing.
Nah, man, that shit was
terrible. Don't.
Like, just throw some powder
I'm giving this 5 wine glasses to the face. Because that is
the face like splashed.
Yes,
like splashed in your face.
Yes.
Okay.
Just like on reality TV. This is very Housewives of Atlanta, like getting in everybody's business.
What about New York? I love New York. It gives you like Flavor Flav, old school vibes.
No, it's not quite to that level.
That shit was hilarious, man.
That was hilarious. But, I mean, in a little ways, though, because he did have a crown and there was all these women just vying for his attention.
Yeah. And he wasn't even that great.
You know what? I can see it. I take the correction. Yeah.
Maybe we should give it Flavor Flav clocks then. I give it 3.5.
No, I'm sticking with the wine to the face because this shit was petty. Like this was a lot of bite backing position. Like the only difference between now and then is like instead of going into your lover's deleted email folder, you would go for their blotting paper. Like one mistress got caught up because the king made sure that his servants got her blotting paper, which means you could kind of like reverse see what she was writing to other people. And that's how she got caught up. And stuff like that. Because once again, the king could fuck everybody, but his mistress was, if she wanted to get some of her, like actually have a satisfying sexual experience, ain't nothing to catch that bitch off.
I would have hated all of it. I just don't think any of it was conducive.
Yeah. My whole thing is like, if we're fucking other people, we're fucking other people. And if we're faithful, we're faithful.
Stop treating me like I'm supposed to be your queen, though. Like, you know what I'm saying? I'm your slam piece, as you have said. And I just feel like, why is there this social construct for me to just... I mean, I'm here whenever you need me to be, obviously, because you keep the lights on in this bitch.
What's so funny to me is like these royal lineages. That once again, I'm going to take back to Star Trek. Because they brought this up in the Klingon Empire in Deep Space Nine, where it's like... There's no unbroken lineage of whatever.
This is right.
The shit gets broken up. Unless you do matrilineally, if you're trying to do it paternally, y'all don't know who. It's not going to happen. It's mama's baby's daddy's maybe.
Oh, wow. Okay, well, you know what?
But I would recommend this. Like I said, if you're a history buff, I feel like that helps. Like if you're already kind of familiar with the courts of Charles II and Louis XIV, because I feel like, in Louis XV, because I feel like those were the through lines. And it kind of ended with Louis the 16th, because that's when they started chopping heads off. But that's the French Revolution. And that led to America. Like, the whole reason we were able to purchase a large segment of America from the French was because they were having some serious-ass problems in France where they started cutting the monarchs' heads off and decided, it's like, I think we would like democracy as well.
It's like, that sounds like a great idea.
Yeah, because these hoes are fucking up.
Yeah. Well, for me, I think, too, that might help. But even if you don't, I think... What will keep you tuned in is just hearing about, I mean, again, it's just the salaciousness.
All around the world, it's the same song.
You know, it is. I mean, it's just like flipping on, like going on a World Star and seeing some dumb shit happen.
Right. Oh, well, this was the other thing, too, that was real, they brought up was the fact that mistresses couldn't just be pretty. Like, whenever it was not enough. Whenever the mistresses were just pretty, the king lost interest. They're like, boring. Next caller, I'm already bored. Yeah. Like, it had to be scintillating conversation, good food.
Bitch, I'm putting on whole plays for you, sir. Like, there was the one who had her own theater, and
that was Madame de Pompadour.
She went hard.
Yes, Madame de the reason why her name is
about her.
They have.
Oh, where is it?
I'll send them to you. There's several.
Really?
She's a big deal in France. Really in Europe in general, but especially in France. She's a big deal.
Okay. Well, see, I'm telling you, y'all might want to check some of that out, too, because she was fascinating.
She was running the country. Yeah. And that happens a lot in history, though. And actually, even in America, a lot of the presidents who became physically incapacitated, their wives took over.
Yeah. I can see that.
Nancy Reagan.
I can see that.
And she was bad at it. The Ronald Reagan presidency, he had Alzheimer and was losing his mind, and Nancy took over.
Oh, Nancy.
And she brought in a lot of psychics and astrologers.
Are you serious?
Yes.
That sounds terrible. I hate everything about that.
Yes. A lot of American policy. You know what? The only reason we didn't get into a nuclear war with Russia was because of a movie called The Day After, the Day After Tomorrow, or The Day After. Oh, where President Reagan saw that and was like, oh, we can't win a nuclear war. The only way to win a nuclear war is to not have one.
100%.
And that's the only reason he de-escalated the nuclear war with Russia was because of a movie.
Okay.
Because once again, he was a movie star. That's the only reason he became president.
Okay. All right.
Leaving.
So I really just... I mean, all of this puts me in a place where it's like, wow, we're really depending on these guys to figure it out for us, and that's really sad. Well, what I will say, guys, is thank you for joining us. This has been really fun.
I liked it.
And I hope you guys, check the book out. Don't listen to me 100%. Again, I was
Don't take my word for it.
Don't take my... But, yeah, like, check it out. Maybe read it. There was some pictures.
Or at least watch Versailles on Netflix. I know y'all have Netflix or somebody's password. Watch that stuff and see how... It doesn't feel like it, but it's really how we got to where we are now.
Yeah. I'm going to take her word for it. because I didn't even get through the book, guys. So. All right. Well, you know what?
But I appreciate you trying. Thank you.
I did try. And, we don't always make it, but that's that's why you should be here.
But we still got
We hope you enjoyed this episode. And I think we're just going to end it here because I'm hot and tired.
I know.
And I got
Reach
stuff
out.
to do. Yeah. So, guys, hit us up, thefabpodcast@gmail.com. Hit us with all your stuff.
And we'll hit you back. I promise.
Yep. Holler, guys.
Bye.
Peace.
Before we go, we must give thanks to our sound engineer, Eric Dizzy from Dorian Keith Media,
to Urban Nerd for providing our music.
Buzz Viral Marketing runs our social media,
and legal services were handled by Trezanae M. Atkins.
If you like what you heard,
please feel free to join us every Wednesday for another fake-ass book club. Cheers.
Thank you guys for listening. You can check us out at thefabpodcast.com. Please subscribe, rate, and review our podcast wherever you're listening right now. We want to hear from you. Come put it in our life. Thanks again, and until next time, peace, love, and the Fake Ass Book Club. We out.